I had very high hopes for the Scorpion Championship that was broadcasted yesterday after the action-packed Mike Albee Classic on Saturday. I thought we'd see even more crazy stuff during the first telecast of the animal patterns of this year's World Series of Bowling, but I have to be honest, I was left disappointed. All 5 players were just off their game, and Randy Peterson said it best at one point with the quote, "That's bad bowling, just bad execution, never got comfortable." And to be honest, that statement applied to every single player at times. Strikes were few and far between, and it was a very low scoring affair. So what exactly happened to make the players struggle so much? I'm going to break down all the reasons why I think the players struggled to get going, and I'll also talk about my top takeaways from this telecast. Let's start with reason number 1, tough conditions. Let's start off by making one thing clear. These lanes were playing very tough indeed. During the qualifying and match play rounds, the scores were stellar, but when it came to this TV pair, the players were struggling from the off. The left lane was quite a bit tighter than the right, and the players did not have any miss from. This led to a lot of tug shots and a lot of splits. It seemed to be a real grind out there, and perhaps it did catch the bowlers off guard a little. You would not have expected the scores to be that low based on the qualifying scores, but of course so often the TV pair will play different to expected. Clearly this tricky pair was a big factor as to why the players struggled, but there are a number of other factors that played a big part, which brings us to reason number 2, lack of experience. We had a lot of new faces, and 4 out of the 5 players who made the telecast had little to no experience bowling on a PBA telecast. In fact, 3 of the players were making their debut, and you had rookie Ryan Barnes with just 3 PBA televised appearances. The only guy with tons of experience on TV was Tackett. Really, it was his to lose, and that's exactly what happened in the end, as he was in the driver's seat but made 2 really bad shots at the end of the match to lose to Rasmus Edvall. The rest of the players really did look lost out there at times, and I think the occasion definitely got to them too, which isn't exactly surprising, but it led to a pretty rough showing in terms of performance. It felt like no one really stepped up and seized the moment as such. Even the winner never looked completely comfortable out there, and I think that really is down to not just the tricky conditions, but the fact it was such a huge moment for him and all of the other players as well. I think lack of experience played a huge part in what we saw on yesterday's telecast. Reason number 3, flat atmosphere. The atmosphere in the Scorpion Championship compared to the Mike Albee Classic was night and day. To me, the crowd seemed quite flat, and just the whole atmosphere just seemed flat as well, but obviously that has something to do with how the players struggled. Fans want to see a lot of strikes, and if players aren't stringing strikes together, it could be hard for the fans to really get engaged. Likewise, the players themselves were just in one gear. There was not really a lot of fire shown. I wanted to see a bit of emotion last night, somebody who saw how the previous players were struggling and to come in firing and really kickstart the atmosphere. I thought EJ might be the one to do it, but it didn't turn out that way. The lone lefty on the show also had a chance to come in and dominate the title match, having the entire side to himself, but again, it didn't work out that way, and overall, I felt that there was just a lack of atmosphere, and if I felt that watching, maybe the players picked up on that too. It just all felt a little bit flat, and I think it was a contributing factor as to why the players could not get going. Reason number 4, too many inconsistent and bad shots. At the end of the day, despite all the factors I mentioned above, all of the players just made too many bad shots. They were too inconsistent with their shot making. Even Rasmus Edvall just kept missing inside many times throughout the show, and I really did like Randy's quote that I mentioned at the start of the video. There were just too many errant shots from all 5 players. So those were the main reasons I felt the players struggled, so let's now move on to my main takeaways from the 2025 Scorpion Championship. Takeaway number 1. Ryan Barnes has the physical game down to a T, but he now needs to work on his mental game. Now, I don't think we should judge Ryan Barnes too harshly here because he's an incredible talent and it's still so early in his career. This is just his 3rd TV appearance and his 2nd in 2025. Both appearances this year have been very rough, as he shot about a 140 game and then a 133. Now, this will be a big learning curve, but there's just one takeaway I had watching him, and that was I felt it was like watching his dad Chris on the lanes. The similarities in their mental game were very apparent to me. Chris always seemed so hard on himself, and you would often hear the self-talk and how he beat himself up for a bad performance. Yesterday, I saw the same type of frustration and essentially negative self-talk from Ryan. He was very hard on himself, and it's understandable, as he would have been extremely disappointed with both of his performances on TV this year. His physical game is spot on, but I now feel it's just his mental game that needs a little bit of work. Chris, I'm sure, will be able to advise him a lot in this area, as it's something he had to go through early in his career. In the year 2000 alone, he made 12 shows without winning a title, so he'll understand exactly Ryan's frustrations and how he can overcome that initial hurdle to winning his first title. Takeaway number 2. The players were just boring. Now, I have to be completely honest, I just found the players on yesterday's show to be boring. All I saw were players throwing their shot, coming back emotionless every single time. None of the players showed anything out there on the lanes, and I think partly that's probably just the nature of the players who made the show. EJ is exciting to watch just because of how good he is, but he's not exactly the most expressive guy on the lanes. Ryan Barnes is probably the only guy we could have seen a bit of fire from if he was able to get going. I'm not saying we have to have somebody on the level of Pete Weber, but I just want to see somebody with a bit of personality out there to liven things up. Takeaway number 3. Sometimes winning doesn't need to be pretty. I'm still not exactly sure how Rasmus Edvald won the title, if I'm honest, because he didn't look fully comfortable in any of his matches, but he just did what he needed to do and close frames. Sometimes that's exactly what you need to do. The title match was probably his best game of the day, but he certainly wasn't lights out yesterday at all. But then again, he did not need to be. Everyone else came unstuck in the end while he just plugged on and got the job done. From that point of view, it was a very impressive performance because he really grinded it out. Anytime you run the ladder, it's impressive, but on conditions like this, and not exactly throwing the ball the best, he did extremely well. This is just proof that sometimes you need to win ugly. So those were my takeaways, and that's going to bring us to an end of this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below on what you thought about this Scorpion Championship. And I'll be back again this week with more action from the World Series of Bowling. So make sure to hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss any of my future videos. That's going to do it from me for today. And as always, thank you, bowling fans, and see you all next time.
Edvald getting closer. You coming tonight here in Reno. Big mistake. He's going to be a champion. He's done it. Rasmus Edvald from Helsingborg. Upside down. I love it. You love it. Put it in a note.